Time for a look at our forecast. Aubrey, it's great weather for those I know out at the fair, but very, very dry and no rain in sight.
Yeah, unfortunately for a lot of the farmers, I should tell Cora to make sure and pass the word. Boy, let our farmers know. Unfortunately, I do not have any good news on the rain front. If you did not pick up much rain in the last couple of days or even the last week or two, we're setting up for a very dry pattern.
Strasburg has declared a drought emergency due to low river flow levels in the North Fork of the Shenandoah River, which is the town's primary water source. It's the town's first drought emergency since 2017, and all residents and businesses are now required to practice water conservation measures, like not washing vehicles and watering lawns. The town says it will likely take a prolonged rain event to get it out of this emergency.
It's a twofold problem. We are kind of in a drought stage in the sense that the river flows are low, and we're also in a drought stage in the sense that we're not getting rain in Strasburg to replenish the groundwater aquifers.
The river gauge for the North Fork in Strasburg shows the river level is currently at 1.7 feet, which is close to the record low of 1.5 feet in February of 1934. If you live in Strasburg, you can find a full list of non-essential water use prohibitions and exceptions right now on our website.
And Cody, we're just keeping an eye on the hot weather tomorrow and this drought that we just can't seem to shake.
No, it seems like it's been here all summer long. We had improvement early on and we've kind of slipped right back into it. We'll take a look at our sky cam here at Weir's Cave for SHD, Pepsi Essential Virginia. It looks like there is a good dosing of rain on the way. Unfortunately, it is deceiving.
With the Shenandoah Valley in a drought, landscapers are finding new jobs to do in the heat. Josh Sprouse with Sprouse Lawn Care says the average lawn gets mowed about 32 times per year, but people would have been lucky to have 26 this year.
Take that into consideration. A lot of times when you set up your contract, you have to set them up to account for a 12-month time frame because you still have to be ready and you still have to perform when the time is that you have to perform.
Sprouse says he prepares for droughts before the summer season starts.
The valley continues to deal with a major drought that has been especially hard on Page and Shenandoah counties. The lack of rainfall has the Shenandoah River in a bad spot with very low water levels, taking a toll on the communities it supports and the wildlife that live in and around it. Shenandoah River keeper Mark Frondorf says the drought is as bad as any the area has seen in the last 20 years. He says it will take a lot of time and rain to replenish the river and groundwater.
Just a heavy rain on the surface that's just going to run off very quickly is not going to get it done for us. We need sustained, systems that come through and drop a decent amount of water over time.
Frondorf says it's important for people in the area to be efficient with their water use and to conserve as much as they can. It's pretty chilly out there this morning, and Aubrey, we continue to stay dry.
Yes, I know. And Chelsea, let me tell you, I can't go anywhere without anyone asking me, how about this rain? Do we have any rain? And unfortunately, the bad news is I have absolutely nothing in sight. I know not what you want to hear, but we'd like to keep it real. So I want to show you the drought monitor. It's Thursday, so we get the update. This comes automatically to your WHSV weather app every Thursday morning. So this is where we were last week at a minor to moderate drought. Now here's the update this week. That moderate drought has been expanded, and now we have a severe drought in parts of northern Shenandoah County as well as Frederick County. This is where Strasburg area, where the Shenandoah River is near record low levels. This is not good, and unfortunately the conditions will not be improving. Virginia DEQ has us in a drought warning, which means voluntarily we need to start thinking about conserving water. Now we'll talk about our local forecast as we head into the holiday weekend. I'll have more on that coming up.
The city of Stanton is asking residents to reduce their water use as the valley stays in a drought despite some of the rain we've seen in the past couple of days. Good evening. I'm Chelsea Church.
And I'm Kayla Brooks. WHSV's Olivia Whitehouse spoke with Stanton Public Works to learn more about the low water levels and how rain could impact the flooding risks in the city.
Director of Public Works Jeff Johnston says that the drought could be a double-edged sword when thinking about flood conditions.
Run dishwashers and washing machines when they're full, only water lawns and gardens when they need it. Be mindful of how long we're taking in the shower. Just little things that if everyone contributes can make a big difference to our water consumption.
Johnston says while the drought is independent to flood risks, the drought can be harmful and helpful when dealing with flooding.
Drought can be helpful as there's more capacity for the ground to absorb water, and in other ways the drought can make it worse because the ground gets hard and more difficult for the water to get into.
He says the city continues to monitor the drought and is doing everything it can to keep all drainage channels clear.
We live in a flood-prone area. Keep an eye on loose things that can clog up storm drains or get into drainage channels.
Johnston says water conservation is stand specific. It is based on the water levels in the reservoir in the mountain that residents use for drinking water.
To the game, we haven't been asking for conservation quite as early as other places because the water levels in the reservoir are different. And the same thing will happen on the backside of this drought. There may be some relief statewide, but that may not manifest itself in our reservoirs.
Johnston says it's always important to think about water conservation even when there is no drought. Working hard for you, Olivia Whitehouse, WHSV.
Every Thursday, it just keeps getting worse and worse. But I do have actually some good news for the weekend. So take a look at our conditions from last week. This was the drought monitor. We were in a moderate to a severe drought. And now the update, the severe area has been expanded as well as the moderate area. No surprise here, even though we did have some rain last weekend. Keep in mind, it's kind of just a little bit here and there. It's not consistent. So things have gotten worse.
The hydroelectric dam generates power from the Shenandoah River, but in the last month, low water levels have raised significant challenges in maintaining its power output. WHSV's Colby Johnson has the story.
With major drought conditions in the valley this summer, Burnshire Hydroelectric Dam here in Woodstock has fallen on hard times. The low levels of water flow have significantly reduced the amount of power the dam's been producing, and there are also concerns about the river's health.
We have to shut down hydroelectric generation for the most part because we have to maintain water flow downstream for the downstream water users, and there's simply not enough water to generate power.
Prior to last weekend's rainstorms, the river had stopped going over the top of the dam, creating a dead pool with no water flowing downstream.
It lasted for about 10 days, and then we got a couple rainstorms, and we had some afternoon rainstorms that helped augment. But at one point, the dead pool behind the dam was minus 1 foot. So we lost a foot of water behind the dam, and nobody around here has ever seen that happen.
Lee Harvey says the rate of water discharge per second was the lowest since electronic measuring has been done on the river. He says the inability to generate enough power to sell has cost his business between $15,000 and $20,000 in the last 2 months.
This is also the time that the power pays the most. Whenever it's hot outside, that's when the power company pays the most for power. So it's kind of a double whammy in that we not only can't generate any power, but we also can't generate any power during the high times when it pays the most money.
Harvey says he's been concerned over the lack of coordination in the valley when it comes to water conservation efforts during the drought, and he worries there could be long-term consequences. Working hard for you, Colby Johnson, WHSV.
Those cows have to eat. They don't have grass, and so you're looking at substantially more feed this year. And I mean, again, all that means at the end of the year is just less money left for the farmer.
Tonight, we hear from a valley farmer dealing with a financial burden caused by the current drought. Good evening. I'm Chelsea Church.
And I'm Kayla Brooks. Thank you for joining us. WHSV's Mike Staley is in the studio and shows us how farmers are picking up the pieces from the drought plaguing the Shenandoah Valley.
Farmers across the valley are taking financial hits. Crops are harvested less, cattle are being sold early, and some farmers even have to import water every day for their farms. Farmers in the valley say rain needs to come before the next planting season to avoid any disasters in the community.
Long term, the biggest impact we've got right now is our groundwater's really, water table's really dropped, and it's going to take a substantial amount of rain to bring that back. I mean, you know, an inch or two, we'd take any kind of rain we could get right now, and we'd be thankful for all of it. But I mean, reality is, you know, we need inches and inches.
Bradley Dunsmore has seen his cattle struggle in the heat, often sitting under trees for shade and drinking more water with no end in sight.
You know, first and foremost on the farms, especially with livestock, they've got to have water. And we've been on a pretty good run here the last 30 days of quite a few hot days. And the water intake's quite a bit higher than what it normally is. these days where it's 90, 95 degrees. I mean, the cattle really drink a lot of water trying to stay cool.
Dunsmore says people, plants, and livestock are suffering from the heat.
And these first few days of September is where we've really had the tough run of hot weather. I mean, this hot weather, it's stressful for the livestock, it's stressful for the farmers. Obviously, as you can see behind me, it's quite stressful for the grass and the other crops.
Dunsmore says farmers are spending more money and bringing less home because of the drought.
I mean, this is a financial hit for every farmer in the valley. And whether that financial hit's in having to buy feed, or you're a crop farmer that, you know, you're expecting a much higher yield with your field crops, whether it's your corn or your soybeans, it's less income. Crops aren't as good as what they should be. Cattle aren't gaining weight like you would normally expect them to be.
Dunsmore says he is lucky. He has interacted with farmers with dried wells, dead crops, and no positive future in sight. Working hard for you, Mike Staley, WHSV.
For the second time in 2.5 months, the town of Strasburg has declared a drought emergency.
The drought emergency is a result of low river flow levels in the North Fork of the Shenandoah River, where the town gets its water. Several non-essential water uses will now be prohibited in the town until the emergency condition is lifted.
These include watering lawns, athletic field irrigation, washing buildings and paved surfaces, washing cars, and filling swimming pools. Restaurants will also only be allowed to serve water upon request by customers.
Residents are also encouraged to practice water conservation measures inside their homes.
And checking in with our chief meteorologist, Aubrey Urbanowitz.
Aubrey, that's certainly a topic that you have been following for how many months now?
Oh my gosh, I can't even remember. It's been so long. And with the drought really continues. We are in a moderate to severe drought. We'll get the latest information on Thursday, but I want to show you how low the river is in the Strasburg area. It's actually close to the record that was set in 1934. So I know all of our rivers are low and our creeks are very low. Some of them are running dry, but this is actually the only one that's very close to record low stage.
The U.S. Forestry Service is optimistic that the worst of the Heavener Ridge fire is behind us. That fire, you can still see some of its smoke a little bit there in the distance behind me. It's on Heavener Mountain, about 3 miles east of Brandywine. And about 50 firefighters have been out battling the blaze. And with today's conditions, things have taken a turn for the better. Crews expect that they'll have it fully contained by the end of tonight.
Overnight, the fire laid down pretty good for us, and conditions have been right today. The crews state that they've gotten an upper hand on it, and if conditions remain as they currently are, they may have this thing knocked down and tightly managed by the end of the day.
Earlier this week, the conditions made fighting the fire tough, but the change in the weather and the hard work of firefighters got things under control.
Winds at times were a struggle. They created difficulties, but it appears that we had the right number of personnel to handle this.
Once the fire is completely contained, crews will continue to patrol the perimeter of the blaze and look to extinguish any hot spots before finishing their work.
During the aftermath, the fire departments will start organizing and cleaning their equipment and getting ready for the next fire call, whatever that may be. We can always hope that it's not going to be another wildfire, but the reality is we need a lot of moisture in the area.
Working hard for you, Colby Johnson, WHSV.
We've also been watching another fire over the past couple of days. Officials with the Virginia Department of Forestry tell us more than 200 people are continuing to respond to the Quaker Run fire. As of just about 3 o'clock this afternoon, the department says the fire is now 3,700 acres and is 40% contained. All right, Aubrey, it was definitely a windy day out there today. No help with the fires that we're keeping an eye on and that crews are battling, but I hear an end is coming soon.
Yes, the winds are at least letting up, and that was some great news with Colby's reporting and from Rick Gillespie that firefighters are getting the upper hand on that fire. We do have a little moisture and even some higher humidity, which will also help as the winds calm down. Even though we had multiple wind shifts throughout the day, now the winds are going to stay out of the north-northwest. We do have a bit of a breeze still across the higher ridge lines as the front continues to pass, but the winds will be letting up for tonight, but that chilly northwest wind settling in, and and that's where temperatures will continue to drop. The other bad news side, even though it was a warm day today, we did get the update on the drought monitor. This will automatically come to your WHSV weather app every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. So if you don't have the WHSV weather app, that's your best source for local weather. And when you're monitoring a significant drought like this, this is something you want to stay on top of. So this is where we were last week in a moderate to severe drought, and of course no improvements. In fact, it got much worse. Things are getting extremely serious now because now we're in an extreme drought for at least 50, maybe 60% of the Shenandoah Valley. We have not been in any sort of an extreme drought since about 2002, and we don't see a significant rain in sight. Things can change fast, but right now nothing is in sight. I'll have more on a small amount of rain coming our way for tomorrow. That's coming up.
Officials tell us crews are battling a wildfire on Shenandoah Mountain in the George Washington National Forest. As of this morning, at least 10 acres had burned, and we are standing by for any updates from the U.S. Forest Service, and we'll bring you that information as we learn it.
Rockingham and Page County farmers are now eligible to apply for disaster programs after the significant drought impacting farms this year. From grain to cattle farmers, each have experienced hardships this season from a lack of rainfall.
There's funding there for grazing losses for livestock that receive basically 50% of their diet, and their energy comes from grazing. And then we also have the emergency livestock program designed for reimbursement for hay, silage, or grain that they've had to purchase over and above what they normally use to feed their animals.
More information on the disaster programs and how to apply can be found on WHSV.com.
And unfortunately, that drought just continues. I mean, very little rain in sight. Certainly not a drought-busting kind of rain. But take a look at today's weather almanac with this very warm day. Our high in downtown at 77. Look at that record high was 75. Guess what? Dale Enterprise broke the record today at 78 degrees.
Thank you. The fire we just mentioned started caused by a vehicle that was on fire on I-64 over Afton Mountain tonight, and that fire does continue to burn. Now, smoke could be seen for miles earlier this afternoon. Take a look at some of our viewer submissions from this afternoon. This is a video here of helicopters that were quickly on the scene and dumping buckets of water on the fire. Skyline Drive also is closed from Loft Mountain, to Afton, and that fire continues to burn as we are awaiting updates on how large the fire is at this time. Now, switching gears to the Match Creek fire along with the Bedford-Rockbridge County line. That exploded Thursday as fire burned about another 1,000 acres, according to the U.S. Forest Service. That has now burned nearly 3,600 acres as of tonight and is unfortunately only 2% contained. There is no cause listed at this time of how the fire started, but due to low visibility and smoke, parts of the Blue Ridge Parkway are closed tonight. And due to the rocky terrain, most of the water drops were frequent throughout the day and continue tonight. Another fire we're following tonight, the Quaker Run fire in the Shenandoah National Park near Big Meadows, has burned nearly 4,000 acres and is 90% contained. Crews continue to mop up hotspots and monitor containment lines, and resources and equipment from this fire are being sent to other fires for assistance. Now we look at one final fire tonight for us. This is the 947 fire that is currently burning in Pocahontas County. That is in West Virginia. This fire is 65% contained and has burned 145 acres so far. And it's possible we may see additional smoke in our area from this fire and the smoke forecast into your Friday. I'll turn it over to Chief Meteorologist Aubrey Urbanowitz, who has more on that. Aubrey?
Thank you, Cody. Now, we've already been seeing some smoke increasing across the area for tonight. This is continuing to push in from south to north because that fire is to the south of the area. So smoke and low visibility has been moving in from Rockbridge County into Augusta and now Rockingham County. We're starting to see some smoke into our West Virginia locations. So if you're noticing that increase in haze, that increase in that smoky smell, that's still from that Bedford County fire tonight, and likely we'll continue to see smoke right into our Friday because we still have winds out of the south-southwest. Winds are going to continue to increase tonight into Friday. We'll have some gusty winds Friday, but then we get a wind shift into Saturday morning. I'll have more on what you can expect for your weekend. That's coming up.
Thanks, guys. And clearly, with many fires still burning across our area, air quality levels can easily decrease. Centera RMH says those at higher risk are children, the elderly population, and individuals with chronic health conditions. Dr. Kristen Holmes says short-term exposure to poor air quality can increase symptoms for chronic lung diseases. She says if you work outside often or are at higher risk, it is recommended that you wear a mask.
They can use masks, but not any type of mask. Fabric masks, surgical masks aren't good enough. The particulate matter is very small, so we can get through those masks. What they need is an N95 mask.
Dr. Holmes says if you use a rescue inhaler, it is imperative that you have it with you at all times, especially if you are outside in this poor air quality.
It is Thursday already, and that means we get the updated drought monitor. Really no change from last week to this week, even though we picked up a little bit of rain. I mean, it was generally around a ½ an inch, so nothing significant. And our drought will continue into the new year. I want to show you some of the year-to-date rainfall totals across the area. Our average is about 39 inches of rain. So you can see Waynesboro and Stanton just over 30 inches. Stanley and Shenandoah about 27 inches, as well as Upper Tract in Pendleton County, West Virginia. Petersburg and Moorfield at 26 inches. So we're down about 6 to 13 inches of rain for the year. We've made a little bit of a comeback in December, but we certainly do need more to come out of this to prep everything for spring. We'll keep you updated. Right now, no big storm systems in sight, but I think we'll have at least a few more on the way. I'll have more on what you can expect for your New Year's weekend. That's coming up.